We're going to learn today about layers and how layers can improve your workflow using Cinema 4D. As you can see here, I have a very complicated scene which I've created. It has hundreds of objects and they're all animated doing a lot of different things. So it's very hard to have this all animated and working in the scene without reducing the amount of animations and the high poly meshes in the scene. And for me to work in a very productive and fast way, I use Cinema 4D layers, and it's literally one of the best methods and tools to have when you're using and building complex scenes just like this. As you can see here, I have my layer system and several layers here, and all these layers are containing different objects within them. And I'm able to control the generators, the deformers, and expressions within the scene. So I could turn on and off these functions accordingly. When I want them to use, when I want to use them, or when I don't want to use them. This gives me so much power to control the scene. Additionally, you have this button here, project element, this project button here, which when you press all frames allows you to render, or allows you to have a faster viewport through all the animations and the simulations within the scene. So you can press that. If you take 4 frames, it makes it a lot quicker. But in this tutorial, I'm going to show you an extra way of how to improve your workflow in the scene. As you can see here, if I switch off all these generators, my scene now becomes more simplified and quicker to move about. And here I can switch off the deformers again, and I will take even more of the scene. As you can see, it's quite simple when you look at it right now. And then I can just put that all back on, put that back on. And the scene will come and restore to be in its most complex way, okay? But we're going to leave that, and we're going to look at this example here to kind of illustrate this example. So now, as you can see, I've made a scene here with different objects. And these objects contain layers. And this main object here is a cube object. And the way you can make a layer in Cinema 4D is you can right-click on a layer, you can right-click on a cube or an item in this objects manager here, right-click and press add to new layer. This will now assign a color to this object, and then in our layers manager, which is underneath the attributes manager, you have a new layer that's been made in here. You can rename the layer and name it Cube2, this example. And everything here, as I stated before, we have solo, we have visibility in our viewport, visibility in our render, we have our hierarchy on and off, we can lock the layer, we have animation, this is our generators here, where my mouse pointer, and you have the deformers, and then we have expression and Python expressions on and off, and we have the express on and off. So this shows you the initials here, what these attributes or features do, okay? So I'm going to show you an example of this. Now, if I take off the Python and expression and make it come on, if I press play, you can see an animation that's happening here. And this animation is being driven by an espresso tag here, okay? So now, if I go back into our layers and I click on our cube layer, which is assigned to all these functions here, we have deformers, we have generators, have all these functions here, here, which is now illustrated here in our cube layout. If I now go to the switch off the expression here and I press play again, the expression is not working. So our espresso here has been shut off. Okay. And if I go back into our layers and I switch it back on and I press play, you can see it working again. It's absolutely brilliant. So we can control even expressions in the scene and Python expressions as well in the scene. Next, we can solo these out. As you can see, solo. So everything that we have here, which is in the layer of cube, it has been soloed out. That's the only thing we see is these items which have been assigned to our cube layer. Okay. Next one is the visibility in our viewport. So only the layers, only those objects within the cube layer. You can see this is for our render. So this switches them off in the rendering settings. And the next one is for the hierarchy. We can actually make them disappear within the hierarchy. This is great for when you're doing really big scenes where you don't want to touch or select certain elements or objects in the scene. This is really great to use. The next one, we can lock the layer. So literally we cannot even select it within the objects manager. And so it's really good if you still want to see what objects are there, but we cannot touch them. And we cannot move them within the objects manager. So our next one is animation. So if we switch off the animation and we actually make an example of the animation and press play, we can see how we have animation, the cube is swaying. Okay, and now if we press switch off animation, that means we've taken off the animation from this cube layer, which has keyframes on it. So that will now stop animation from playing within that layer, which is absolutely brilliant. So we can control certain type of specific animations that are running in the scene. This just gives us a lot of power. It's absolutely a brilliant tool to use. It's great for production. And the next one, we have generators. So everything that is a generator, which is highlighted in green, we can switch those off. So our clone object, let's even add an extra subdivision by holding Alt. It'll become a parent of the object. When you hold Shift, becomes a child of the object. So make sure you hold down Alt to do that. So we're just adding an extra layer to this example that I'm showing you now, and it's switch off generators. Okay. Well, everything is being turned off because the reason why that is because the cube, a parametric object, is also generated. It's a procedure object which is generated. So we have to now make that a edited object or mesh for us to control it, because once we switch this off, the generation, we switch off every generational procedure object, meaning things that are arrayed, things that are used by the cloners, things that are generated. So they're not static or meshes, they're generated. So we have to now make that cube into an edited mesh for it to work. So you just click edit cube. So now, once we press the generation off here, you see how it takes away the subdivision and the clone, switches off, but leaves the cube because now it's an actual mesh. So the next one we want to go to is deformers. Let's press deformers. It is not working for some reason. The layer system is very hierarchical based, meaning where the hierarchy of the next corresponding or next object above it needs to be within the object as well for the whole system to work. So if we add now back the cube layer, and press the formulas, it now works. So the way we can now use this system even better is just to switch off the cloner, and then you can use the deformer. If you don't want to see the cloner in action, you can switch it off or by enabling it on and off without using the layer system. So there's so many ways you can now benefit from using this layer system. Now, after that is the espresso, which I showed. Let's put back our cloner and we switch off the espresso. And now when we press play, we don't have these noise effect that's happening on the surface of our cube. So if we switch that back on, now we should see the cube now move in its effect, its noise effect on top of the cube. So we can even now put layers on materials. So we can select our materials we want, and press right click and add to the layer. So we can add to there. Now, if we press cube, we can see that the materials assigned to the cube layer is located here, has its own layer in the materials manager. If we go to no layer, we have all the materials which are not allocated or assigned to a layer, and then we have all the materials assigned in the all manager, materials manager. This is great if you have a large scene and you want to assign particular materials to particular layers, which is absolutely brilliant. You can add layers to your tags as well, which I have with the espresso tag. And now, if you can see closely here, we can add it from here as well. You can add them to the materials. If you right click, you can add it to, which is already added, but you can add it to there just to give you that visual representation here on our objects manager that is allocated to the cube here. Okay, so this is really brilliant. So we can really make our scene so efficient and easy to work with, because at times complex scenes are very hard to work with in many 3D softwares. So it's always best for us to make ways that can be more efficient for our workflow. And an extra tip is the filter area. If still you have maybe a bit of lag within the scene, you can just go up to here and our options and level of detail, we can put it down to low. So the lowest, it will bring it down to its lowest form, whether it's a generation form, whether it's a parametric form, whatever state it is in. This filter menu, sorry, the options level detail bring it down to its lowest form. So this lowest form in the clone object will be 1, wouldn't it? But the reason that is we need more bigger count on the cloner. So 50 is basically half of your highest and your lowest. Because if we go back now to high, it would give us more, the highest number of clones that we have. So if we bring that down to low, bring it to its lowest one, bring it to medium, it give us basically near enough half. So that would be 3 by 3, which if we press that, it's in medium, but if we put back onto high and bring it to half. So that's another way we can reduce further our scene for it to be more manageable for us to work in. So these are the tips of layers and making your scene a lot easier, sorry, to manage and work with. I hope this helps. And like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.